Robert Nesta Marley OM, February 6, 1945 to May 11, 1981, was a Jamaican singer, songwriter, and guitarist. Considered one of the pioneers of reggae, he fused elements of reggae, ska, and rocksteady, and was renowned for his distinctive vocal and songwriting style. Marley increased the visibility of Jamaican music worldwide and became a global figure in popular culture. He became known as a Rastafarian icon, and he infused his music with a sense of spirituality. Marley is also considered a global symbol of Jamaican music and culture and identity, and was controversial in his outspoken support for democratic social reforms. Marley also supported the legalization of cannabis and advocated for Pan-Africanism. Born in 9 Mile, Jamaica, Marley began his career in 1963 after forming the group Teenagers with Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer, which became the Wailers. In 1965, they released their debut studio album, The Wailing Wailers, which included the single One Love, a reworking of People Get Ready. It was popular worldwide and established the group as a rising figure in reggae. The Wailers released 11 more studio albums, and after signing to Island Records, changed their name to Bob Marley and the Wailers. While initially employing louder instrumentation and singing, they began engaging in rhythmic-based song construction in the late 1960s and early 1970s, which coincided with Marley's conversion to Rastafari. Around this time, Marley relocated to London, and the group embodied their musical shift with the release of the album The Best of the Wailers, 1971. Bob Marley and the Wailers began to gain international attention after signing to Island and touring in support of the albums Catch a Fire and Burnin', both 1973. Following their disbandment a year later, Marley carried on under the band's name. The album Natty Dread, 1974, received positive reviews. In 1975, following the global popularity of Eric Clapton's version of Marley's I Shot the Sheriff, Marley had his international breakthrough with his first hit outside Jamaica, a live version of No Woman, No Cry from the Live album. This was followed by his breakthrough album in the United States, Rastaman Vibration, 1976, which reached the top 50 of the Billboard Soul charts. A few months later, Marley survived an assassination attempt at his home in Jamaica, which was believed to be politically motivated. 16, he permanently relocated to London, where he recorded the album Exodus, which incorporated elements of blues, soul, and British rock, and had commercial and critical success. In 1977, Marley was diagnosed with acral lentiginous melanoma. He died in May 1981, shortly after baptism into the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Fans around the world expressed their grief, and he received a state funeral in Jamaica. The Greatest Hits album Legend was released in 1984 and became the best-selling reggae album of all time. Marley also ranks as one of the best-selling music artists of all time, with estimated sales of more than 75 million records worldwide. He was posthumously honored by Jamaica soon after his death with a designated Order of Merit by his nation. In 1994, Marley was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Rolling Stone ranked him number 11 on its list of the 100 greatest artists of all time, and number 98 on its list of the 200 greatest singers of all time. His other achievements include a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and induction into the Black Music and Entertainment Walk of Fame. Early life: Marley was born on February 6, 1945 at the farm of his maternal grandfather in 9 Mile, St. Ann Parish, Jamaica, to Norval Sinclair Marley and Cedella Malcolm. Norval was a white Jamaican born in Clarendon Parish, and whose cousins claimed that the Marley surname had Syrian Jewish origins. This is, however, not conclusive and speculative, and was refuted by Marley's biographer. Norval went by the moniker Captain, despite only having been a private in the British Army. At the time of his marriage to Cedella Malcolm, an Afro-Jamaican then 18 years old, Norval was supervising a subdivision of land for war veteran housing, and he was about 64 years old at the time of Bob Marley's birth. Norval, who provided little financial support for his wife and child and rarely saw them, died when Marley was 10 years old. Some sources state that Marley's birth name was Nesta Robert Marley, with a story that when Marley was still a boy, A Jamaican passport official reversed his first and middle names because Nesta sounded like a girl's name. Marley's maternal grandfather, Omaria, known as Amile, was an early musical influence on Marley. Marley began to play music with Neville Livingston, later known as Bunny Wailer, while at Stepney Primary and Junior High School in 9 Mile, where they were childhood friends. At age 12, Marley left 9 Mile with his mother and moved to the Trenchtown section of Kingston. Marley's mother and Thaddeus Livingston, Bunny Wailer's father, had a daughter together named Claudette Pearl, who was a younger sister to both Bob and Bunny. With Marley and Livingston living together in the same house in Trenchtown, their musical explorations deepened to include the new ska music and the latest R&B from United States radio stations whose broadcasts reached Jamaica. Marley formed a vocal group with Bunny Wailer and Peter Tosh. The lineup was known variously as the Teenagers, the Wailing Rude Boys, the Wailing Wailers, and finally, just the Wailers. Joe Higgs, who was part of the successful vocal act Higgs and Wilson, lived nearby and encouraged Marley. Marley and the others did not play any instruments at this time and were more interested in being a vocal harmony group. Higgs helped them develop their vocal harmonies and began teaching Marley guitar. Marley's mother later married Edward Booker, a civil servant from the United States, giving Marley 2 half-brothers, Richard and Anthony. Career in February 1962, Marley recorded 4 songs, Judge Not, One Cup of Coffee, Do You Still Love Me, and Terror, at Federal Studios for local music producer Leslie Kong. 3 of the songs were released on Beverly's, with One Cup of Coffee being released under the pseudonym Bobby Martell. In 1963, Bob Marley, Bunny Wailer, Peter Tosh, Junior Braithwaite, Beverly Kelso, and Cherry Smith were called the Teenagers. They later changed the name to the Wailing Rude Boys, then to the Wailing Wailers, at which point they were discovered by record producer Coxsone Dodd, and finally to the Wailers. Their single Simmer Down for the Coxsone label became a Jamaican #1 in February 1964, selling an estimated 70,000 copies. The Wailers, now regularly recording for Studio One, found themselves working with established Jamaican musicians such as Ernest Ranglin, arranger It Hurts to Be Alone, the keyboardist Jackie Mitu, and saxophonist Roland Alfonso. By 1966, Braithwaite, Kelso, and Smith had left the Wailers, leaving the core trio of Bob Marley, Bunny Wailer, and Peter Tosh. In 1966, Marley married Rita Anderson and moved near his mother's residence in Wilmington, Delaware, in the United States for a short time, during which he worked as a DuPont lab assistant and on the assembly line and as a forklift operator at a Chrysler plant in nearby Newark, under the alias Donald Marley. Though raised Catholic, Marley became interested in Rastafari beliefs in the 1960s, when away from his mother's influence. After returning to Jamaica, Marley formally converted to Rastafari and began to grow dreadlocks. After a financial disagreement with Dodd, Marley and his band teamed up with Lee Scratch Perry and his studio band, The Upsetters. Although the alliance lasted less than a year, they recorded what many consider the Wailers' finest work. Marley and Perry split after a dispute regarding the assignment of recording rights, but they would continue to work together. 1969 brought another change to Jamaican popular music, where the beat slowed down even further. The new beat was a slow, steady, ticking rhythm that was first heard on the Maytals song, Do the Reggae. Marley approached producer Leslie Kong, who was regarded as one of the major developers of the reggae sound. For the recordings, Kong combined the Wailers with his studio musicians called Beverly's All-Stars, which consisted of bassist Lloyd Parks and Jackie Jackson, drummer Paul Douglas, keyboardist Gladstone Anderson and Winston Wright, and guitarists Rad Bryan, Lynn Tate, and Hux Brown. As David Moskowitz writes, the tracks recorded in this session illustrated the Wailers' earliest efforts in the new reggae style. Gone are the ska trumpets and saxophones of the earlier songs, with instrumental breaks now being played by the electric guitar. The songs recorded would be released as the album The Best of the Wailers, including tracks Soul Shakedown Party, Stop That Train, Caution, Go Tell It on the Mountain, Soon Come, Can't You See, Soul Captives, Cheer Up, Back Out, and Do It Twice. Between 1968 and 1972, Bob and Rita Marley, Peter Tosh, and Bunny Wailer recut some old tracks with JD Records in Kingston and London in an attempt to commercialize the Wailers sound. Bunny later asserted that those songs should never be released on an album. They were just demos for record companies to listen to. In 1968, Bob and Rita visited songwriter Jimmy Norman at his apartment in the Bronx. Norman had written the extended lyrics for Time Is on My Side, recorded by Irma Thomas and the Rolling Stones, and had also written for Johnny Nash and Jimi Hendrix. 51, a three-day jam session with Norman and others, including Norman's co-writer RG'PYRAMID, resulted in a 24-minute tape of Marley performing several of his own and Norman Pyfram's compositions. According to reggae archivist Roger Steffens, this tape is rare in that it was influenced by pop rather than reggae, as part of an effort to break Marley into the U.S. charts. 51, according to an article in the New York Times, Marley experimented on the tape with various sounds, adopting a doo-wop style on Stay With Me and the slow love song style of 1960s artists on Splish for My Splash. 51. He lived in Ridgemount Gardens, Bloomsbury, during 1972. 1972 to 1974. Moved to Island Records. In 1972, Bob Marley signed with CBS Records in London and embarked on a UK tour with soul singer Johnny Nash. 53. While in London, the Wailers asked their road manager Brent Clark to introduce them to Chris Blackwell, who had licensed some of their Coxsone releases for his Island Records. The Wailers intended to discuss the royalties associated with these releases. Instead, the meeting resulted in the offer of an advance of £4,000 to record an album. 54. Since Jimmy Cliff, Island's top reggae star, had recently left the label, Blackwell was primed for a replacement. In Marley, Blackwell recognized the elements needed to snare the rock audience. I was dealing with rock music, which was really rebel music. I felt that would really be the way to break Jamaican music. But you needed someone who could be that image. When Bob walked in, he really was that image. 55. The Wailers returned to Jamaica to record at Harry J's in Kingston, which resulted in the album Catch a Fire. Primarily recorded on an 8-track, Catch a Fire marked the first time a reggae band had access to a state-of-the-art studio and were recorded the same care as their rock and roll peers. Blackwell desired to create more of a drifting, hypnotic-type feel than a reggae rhythm, and restructured Marley's mixes and arrangements. Marley traveled to London to supervise Blackwell's overdubbing of the album at Island Studios, which included tempering the mix from the bass-heavy sound of Jamaican music and omitting 2 tracks. The Wailers' first album for Island, Catch a Fire, was released worldwide in April 1973, packaged like a rock record with a unique Zippo lighter lift top. Initially selling 14,000 units, it received a positive critical reception. It was followed later that year by the album Burnin', which included the song I Shot the Sheriff. Eric Clapton was given the album by his guitarist George Terry in the hope that he would enjoy it. Clapton was impressed and chose to record a cover version of I Shot the Sheriff, which became his first U.S. hit since Laylam 2 years earlier and reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 on September 14, 1974. Many Jamaicans were not keen on the new reggae sound on Catch a Fire, but the Trenchtown style of Burnin' found fans across both reggae and rock audiences. During this period, Blackwell gifted his Kingston residence and company headquarters at 56 Hope Road, then known as Island House, to Marley. Housing Tough Gong Studios, the property became not only Marley's office, but also his home. The Wailers disbanded in 1974, with each of the 3 main members pursuing a solo career. Despite the breakup, Marley continued recording as Bob Marley and the Wailers. His new backing band included brothers Carlton and Aston, Family Man, Barrett on drums and bass respectively, Junior Marvin and Al Anderson on lead guitar, Tyrone Downey and Earl Wyatt Lindo on keyboards, and Alvin Seco Patterson on percussion. The By Threes, consisting of Judy Mowat, Marcia Griffiths, and Marley's wife, Rita, provided backing vocals. In 1975, Marley had his international breakthrough with his first hit outside Jamaica with a live version of No Woman, No Cry from the Live album. This was followed by his breakthrough album in the United States, Rastaman Vibration, 1976, which reached the top 50 of the Billboard Soul charts. On December 3, 1976, 2 days before Smile Jamaica, a free concert organized by Jamaican Prime Minister Michael Manley in an attempt to ease tension between 2 warring political groups, Bob Marley, Rita, and manager Don Taylor were wounded in an assault by unknown gunmen inside Marley's home. Taylor and Rita sustained serious injuries, but later made full recoveries. Marley sustained minor wounds in the chest and arm. The attempt on his life was believed to have been politically motivated, as many felt that Smile Jamaica was actually a support rally for Manley. Nonetheless, the concert proceeded, and an injured Marley performed as scheduled, 2 days after the attempt. The members of the group Zap Pow played as Bob Marley's backup band before a festival crowd of 80,000, while members of the Wailers were still missing or in hiding. 1976 to 1979, relocation to England. Marley left Jamaica at the end of 1976, and after a month-long recovery and writing, sojourn at the site of Chris Blackwell's Compass Point Studios in Nassau, Bahamas, arrived in England, where he spent 2 years in self-imposed exile. Whilst in England, he recorded the albums Exodus and Kaya. Exodus stayed on the British album charts for 56 consecutive weeks. It included 4 UK hit singles, Exodus, Waiting in Vain, Jamming, and One Love, which interpolates Curtis Mayfield's hit, People Get Ready. During his time in London, Marley was arrested and convicted of possession of a small quantity of cannabis. In 1978, Marley returned to Jamaica and performed at another political concert, the One Love Peace Concert, again in an effort to calm warring parties. Near the end of the performance, by Marley's request, Michael Manley, leader of then-ruling People's National Party, and his political rival Edward Seaga, leader of the opposing Jamaica Labour Party, joined each other on stage and shook hands. Under the name Bob Marley and the Wailers, 11 albums were released for live albums and 7 studio albums. The releases included Babylon by Bus, a double live album with 13 tracks, was released in 1978 and received critical acclaim. This album, and specifically the final track, Jamming, with the audience in a frenzy, captured the intensity of Marley's live performances. Survival, a defiant and politically charged album, was released in 1979. Tracks such as Zimbabwe, Africa Unite, Wake Up and Live, and Survival reflected Marley's support for the struggles of Africans. His appearance at the Amanla Festival in Boston in July 1979 showed his strong opposition to South African apartheid, which he already had shown in his song War in 1976. In early 1980, Marley was invited to perform at an April 17th celebration of Zimbabwe's Independence Day. Uprising, 1980, was Marley's final studio album and the last album that was released during his lifetime. It is one of his most religious productions, as it includes Redemption Song and Forever Loving Jah. Released posthumously in 1983, contained unreleased material recorded during Marley's lifetime, including the hit Buffalo Soldier and new mixes of singles previously only available in Jamaica Personal Life. Religion and Beliefs. Haile Selassie I, Emperor of Ethiopia from 1930 to 1974, was one of Marley's inspirations. Marley was a longtime member of the Rastafari movement, whose culture was a key element in the development of reggae. He became an ardent proponent of Rastafari, taking its music out of the socially deprived areas of Jamaica and onto the international music scene. 69. As part of being a Rastafarian, Marley felt that Haile Selassie I of Ethiopia was an incarnation of God or Jah. However, later in life, he ended up converting to Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity and was baptized by Archbishop Abuna Yeshak in the presence of his wife, Rita Marley, and their children, with the name of Brahane Selassie, on November 4, 1980, shortly before his death. As a Rastafarian, Marley supported the legalization of cannabis or ganja, which Rastafarians believe is an aid to meditation. Marley began to use cannabis when he converted to the Rastafari faith from Catholicism in 1966. Marley was arrested in 1968 after being caught with cannabis, but continued to use marijuana in accordance with his religious beliefs. Of his marijuana usage, Marley said, "When you smoke herb reveal yourself to you. All the wickedness you do, the herb reveal itself to yourself, your conscience, show up yourself clear, because herb make you meditate. Is only a natural TNG, and it grow like a tree." Marley saw marijuana usage as a vital factor in religious growth and connection with Jah, and as a way to philosophize and become wiser. Marley was a Pan-Africanist and believed in the unity of African people worldwide. His beliefs were rooted in his Rastafari religious beliefs. Marley was substantially inspired by Marcus Garvey and had anti-imperialist and Pan-Africanist themes in many of his songs, such as Zimbabwe, Exodus, Survival, Blackman Redemption, and Redemption Song. The lattermost draws influence from a 1937 speech given by Marcus Garvey in Nova Scotia. Marley held that independence of African countries from European domination was a victory for all those in the African diaspora. In the song Africa Unite, he sings of a desire for all peoples of the African diaspora to come together and fight against Babylon. Similarly, in the song Zimbabwe, Marley marks the liberation of the whole continent of Africa and evokes calls for unity between all Africans, both within and outside Africa. Family. Marley married Alfreda Constantia Reedham Anderson in Kingston, Jamaica, on February 10, 1966. He had many children. 3 were born to his wife Rita, and 2 additional children were adopted from Rita's previous relationships as his own, and they have the Marley name. The official Bob Marley website acknowledges 11 children. Those listed on the official site are Sharon, born November 23, 1964, daughter of Rita from a previous relationship, but then adopted by Marley after his marriage with Rita. Sedella, born August 23, 1967, to Rita. David Ziggy, born October 17, 1968, to Rita. Stephen, born April 20, 1972, to Rita. Robert Robbie, born May 16, 1972, to Pat Williams. Rohan, born May 19, 1972, to Janet Hunt. Karen Marley, born 1973, to Janet Bowen. Stephanie Marley, born August 17, 1974, to Rita and Owen Ital Stewart, a former Jamaican soccer player. Nonetheless, Bob adopted Stephanie as one of his own, which entitled her to his estate. 81. Julian, born June 4, 1975, to Lucy Pounder. Kaimeni, born February 26, 1976, to Anita Belnavis. Damien, born July 21, 1978, to Cindy Breakspear.